Just as we're beneficiaries of the legacy of the Sisters of St. Joseph, they too were beneficiaries of other religious orders who led up to their creation in 1650. There was one really interesting group of people in Annecy, France, who had a profound influence on the Sisters of St. Joseph. St. Jean de Chantal and St. Francis de Sales were working together, and they were looking for ministries 50 years before our sisters came together that would allow women to serve more actively in the community. That was unheard of at the time.
In the 16th century, you have the Protestant Reformation unfolding in Europe. Geneva, Switzerland, was where the Calvinist movement was quite prominent, and so Catholicism was expelled from Geneva. And so the Counter-Reformation, or the Catholic Reformation, took root in Annecy, France. It's the Counter-Reformation that really gives birth to the religious movements and spiritual movements in France that give birth to the Sisters of St. Joseph. Francis de Sales was the bishop in the late 1500s. He was a very important figure at that time because he felt that the Calvinist message was too strict. He really preached about the mercy of God and the love of God. So he wanted everybody in his diocese to know that God was loving and kind and merciful, and not the stricter God of the Calvinist Reformation. St. Francis de Sales had kind of a collaborator, a spiritual partner in Jane de Chantal, who felt called to religious life, but she was a widow and had children, so it was unusual. They were both considered very spiritually gifted. He was her spiritual director, and together they founded the Sisters of the Visitation of Mary. Francis de Sales and Jane de Chantal were envisioning the founding of a women's religious community. They wanted it to be more active than sisters would have been at that time. In fact, nuns at that time only were in the cloister and were not active the way we know sisters to be today. And so the Nuns of the Visitation were meant to offer charity to the poor, to educate women, and to offer health care. In the beginning stages of the Nuns of the Visitation, they were more active. As they grew, as time went on, some of the bishops did not approve of that, and so the Visitations did end up being a cloistered community. But Francis de Sales really believed in this model, and it was about 50 years later that some of the disciples of St. Francis and other church leaders who admired St. Francis knew about his model of having women serve in the community, and that's what gives rise to the Sisters of St. Joseph being out of the cloister. So the Sisters of St. Joseph trace our roots to St. Francis de Sales and Jane de Chantal.
But it was our sisters who were some of the first to truly live outside of cloister and to serve and live with the people directly. That was something new, but we're very grateful to our roots in Annecy, France. That paved the way.